Welcome back to 101 East in the Maldives. Earlier, we spoke to President Gayoom ahead of the second round of the country's historic presidential election. Now, his opponent, Mohamed Nasheed, an outspoken political activist who's been locked up several times after criticizing the government. Today, Mohamed Nasheed leads an opposition coalition seeking to end President Gayoom's 30-year reign. Joining us now is presidential candidate, Mr. Mohamed Nasheed. Thank you very much for being with us today. In this first round of voting, you garnered 25% of the ballot. That means 75% of the ballots did not go to you. Were you surprised?
People didn't vote against me. People voted against Gayoom, and in the process they decided who was the best person to vote for while voting against Gayoom. So now we are in a situation where everyone, all the leaders, all the opposition leaders have joined together and they are supporting our candidacy, and therefore this should be quite easy for us.
But how strong is this coalition, given that some of the supporters of these opposition parties are not supportive of you?
Our political aspirations might be different. Our political leaders would want to aspire to become to hold government. And I have also promised that there will be, we hope that there will be another election when democracy is more stable. So hopefully during midterm. And therefore that would leave room for other opposition leaders to aspire for leadership.
But that does give a signal that your coalition is not as strong as you would hope to be.
Well, to be pretending what we don't have would be wrong. We've come up with a coalition to beat the dictatorship. And what comes after beating them, we take over as a government. And the government also would be run by the coalition.
I just want to take you up on the issue of the coalition that you have formed. And one of the parties is the Adalat Party, whose leader supports implementing the Sharia law to the letter. His leader supports the death penalty for apostasy. But that doesn't sound very moderate, does it?
Well,
especially for the Maldivian Democrat Party, which you lead.
We have to understand the political landscape of this country. It's a 100% Muslim country. If we leave them outside, in the margins, for instance, I think that probably would be more detrimental for the development of the country.
You've spent 6 years in jail as a political prisoner. You've spent some time in self-exile as a political activist. You now say, I have to blow my own trumpet. This is your own quote. I have done higher studies. I can add 6 letters after my name. There are few people in this country who have as many certificates as me.
Well,
how does that qualify you as a good leader?
I've been through a lot in this country. I understand this country. And people do look up to me as someone who can take this country to another country, as we say, to a more democratic country, to a more prosperous country, to a more fair country, to a more humane country.
But your youth and inexperience itself could be a problem, especially as you're going up against a president who's been in power for the last 30 years. There's an economic downturn that's on the horizon at the moment. People are unsure about their jobs, about their lives. They want to be guided by somebody who has gone through that has the experience.
They obviously don't want to be guided by him. They've shown it through the first round of voting. Now this man has repeated his first year of experience 30 times. This is exactly the type of experience that we don't need in this country now.
Well, it is very admirable that you want to implement democracy in this country. But what is democracy to somebody who has no job, who is living in poverty, who is struggling to bring up their children? What specific plans do you have to help the 21% of this population that is living in poverty?
We believe that we can change this country to a much, much more prosperous country. The people can have a really good life here. It's a rich country in natural resources. Our economy is doing good. Tourism is booming. Fisheries, we could still make it more productive. We could still earn more revenue through fisheries, and there's many other marine resources. We have a whole number of other untouched natural resources where we could use them. But cronyism, nepotism, and the dictatorship has stopped us from using these resources for our betterment. I assure the people of this country that with us, they will prosper and they will have a much better life.
Getting into power would mean that you would have to work with people who were against you in the past, people who perhaps tortured you, who threw you into jail, who manufactured that torture machinery. Will you hold these people accountable for what they did to you?
I've always believed that you cannot move forward with vendetta and with vengeance in your mind. You have to be forgiving and you have to be compassionate. You can't go for a witch hunt.
Having said that, will there be place for Gayoom and his allies in a Nasheed-led democracy?
It's very important to have a place for Gayoom. We have never had a former ruler alive staying with us. Statehood, statecraft involves past rulers, involves experienced past rulers to be in the country, at times coming out and sharing their experiences of the past.
That means you would have to court him into your parliament, into your government as well, because he does have the power to instigate against you if you get into power.
To curtail him while he is in power, and I have no problem in letting him out and be, the fear that he would come and disturb us, never.
If President Gayoom wins another term in office, does that mean an end to democracy?
Definitely.
But he has been credited for introducing democratic reforms recently. He no longer stifles opposition voices. It is a start, isn't it? It's a progressive start for the Maldives.
Democracy here is in spite of him, not because of him. We've just held our hands together. We have been able to overcome our fears and come out as a political entity. We've organized ourselves not because he's allowed us to do that, but because we did it in exile and came back and we started running the party at home. Simply the numbers had meant that he couldn't arrest us anymore.
After all is said and done, after the fight has been fought, and if you do not get into office, was the fight worth it?
To start with, we will, God willing, win it. There's no doubt about that. We are very certain that we will win it. More than 70% of the country is saying that they don't want Gayoom. You really have to go into serious rigging to get any other result out of this. It's been very worth it. We've all enjoyed, in many instances enjoyed it, and we've all learned through this whole process. Solitary days were, of course, very hard and very lonely, painful, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and we are coming through it. We will have this other Maldives. There is another Maldives.
Mr. Nasheed, thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you very much.
And that's all the time we have. From the 101 East team in the Maldives, thanks for watching.